During the next 25 minutes or so, you'll be hearing from Dr. O'Connor on what vision therapy is. And then you'll also get to hear from a mom of a vision therapy graduate. And then we'll also have time at the end where you'll have question and answers. If you want to put your questions now or throughout the presentation into the chat, we'll monitor those too. And then that way, if you won't forget them later on after you've heard all the interesting things you're about to hear. So with that being said, I'll introduce ourselves a little bit more. Vision development, we are in Elma. We're just outside of East Aurora, but we serve patients all over Western New York and then even, outside surrounding areas from there. We've been open for about 5.5 years, and it's Dr. O'Connor, Dr. Dick O'Connor, Dr. Alyssa Fortuna, and then we have our team of therapists as well. And well, vision development has been around a short while. Dr. O'Connor has been practicing optometric vision therapy for over 45 years at this point. He opened the practice in his retirement, we'll say, so that he could continue to share his passion of helping people live their lives to their fullest potential. He knew this is what he was put here to do. And honestly, I've been around for 10 years and I can't picture him doing anything else other than sharing his passion. So it makes sense that he continued everything into his retiring years. So without further ado, we won't waste any time. We'll get into the fun stuff, and I will let Dr. O'Connor take over and start sharing his passion with everyone.
Well, good evening. Thanks for all of you showing up. Hopefully you can hear me. If there's any point that you can't, somebody yell. And thanks, Kelly. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. It sounds like I should be way over the hill, but working with all these kids just keeps me going. We were out throwing snowballs yesterday. One of the kids wanted to have a snowball war. It was a great time. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. This usually takes me a couple hours to go through. I've got, I think, 7 minutes, right, Jamie? Anyhow, so go to the third slide, please, Kelly. Good, thanks. So nice picture, huh? So when you hear the term vision, most people think of seeing clearly. Do I have 20/20 acuity? Yes. And most people say that's great vision, or I have perfect vision because I can see clearly. To me, vision is way more than that. Kelly hit it there. It's first of all, it's the intake of all the information that comes into your eyes. And then we go to the comprehension part. It's comprehending and understanding what that information is and what it means. And then the final thing is the output, the result that you get from the reading or from the looking or whatever you're taking in through that visual system. So it's all of that put together, and there's a lot of visual skills involved with this to get this done efficiently and effectively.
Could you speak up a little? Speak up.
Speak up. Okay. Yeah, so the reason that there are problems with vision stems from the fact that for eons, we were hunters and gatherers, hunting things and running away from things that were trying to hunt us. And then we became farmers and always looking off at distance. And our visual system is really set up well for looking off at distance. When we look at distance, the muscles of the eyes are very relaxed and in balance. And then about 100 years ago or so, the compulsory education began. And all of a sudden, now we're thrown into this situation where we're doing all this work at near and reading. And now we see kids not only reading, but they're on screens all day long. I've got a boy coming in tomorrow. I just looked at his history today. He spends 6 hours on the computer at school, and then he's allowed to do another 2 to 3 hours on the screens at night. That's killing these visual systems. And the difference between where our visual system is comfortable looking at distance and doing most of our work now, which is within about 16, 18 inches, creates a mismatch. And this mismatch results in this thing we call visual stress. And it's a real stressor. It's the same type of stress that causes physiological problems, heart attacks, that sort of thing. And this visual stress causes 3 responses. at least, now there's probably more, but we talk about 3 responses. One is actually physical changes of the eyes. I don't know how many of you are nearsighted or myopic, but one of the reasons that we become myopic is, again, we start doing a lot of near work very early in life before the visual system is fully developed, creates this stress on the eyes, and the visual system tries to make some changes to give up the stress at near, and it'll actually start giving up your far vision in order to be more comfortable up close. Of course, then you go into one of us brilliant eye doctors and we say, oh, you can't see far away. We'll give you glasses for that. We put you back in the same situation you're in before, and your system knows that all it has to do is become a little more nearsighted and you're more comfortable. At this point, about 24% of the US population is in this category of myopia. About 50 years ago, it was only about 12 or 14%. The second response to this visual stress is where the kids force themselves to do the work with reduced performance or comprehension. And this is one that takes hours to do 15 minutes of homework. They skip and reread lines. They work below their potential. There's poor comprehension. And a few years ago, we had a pediatrician come into the office. And I looked at her visual system and it was a mess. And I said, Dr. Kate, how did you get through medical school? And she said, in a lot of pain. She said within a half an hour of trying to do near work on the computer reading, she would start to get a headache. Then words would start to run together. Then she couldn't think anymore. And she was having a lot of difficulty passing a board exam, which is why she came in and was able to do it once we helped her rehabilitate her visual system. And then the third response to this visual stress is where people just avoid doing the near work. And these are the kids that have homework wars at home. They just don't want to do it. We had one boy come in that just would throw his books on the floor at night and walk over to the wall, hit his head against the wall and yell, I'm just stupid. I'm just stupid. And these kids aren't. Most of these kids are actually pretty bright. Some of them actually can get along pretty well in grade school and high school because they become auditory learners. Once they get to college, they break down because they can't do all the reading and the near work that they have to do. And so we've had a lot of college kids come in that take a semester off to just come in and, again, try to rehabilitate their visual system so they can function. These are the kids also that get diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, dyslexia. They become behavior problems and they give up, and they just have no self-confidence in themselves. All right, so next one, Kelly. Visual skills. These are things that we look at when someone comes in for a vision evaluation, and if they're not functioning the way they should, we then, again, try to rehabilitate them with our vision therapy. Visual acuity is just that whole thing of seeing 20/20, and that's all it is, seeing clearly. Ocular motility is the ability to track or follow a line of print and get back to the next line, or follow a ball in space. Accommodation is the ability to focus at near, keeping things clear, as well as looking far away and keeping things clear. There's actual muscle inside the eye that allows you to do that. Binocular vision is when the two eyes work together as a team, as opposed to one of them turning in or turning out and forcing you to see double. And then convergence is the two eyes working together as a team, but up close, where they actually have to converge and point to something at near, and that creates a lot more stress again on the system. Stereopsis is 3D vision or depth perception, and visual fields. So visual fields, you probably know what that is. It's when you're looking straight ahead, you've got all this peripheral information coming into your eyes, and most of us can deal with that all at once. But sometimes through some of these visual stresses and neurological problems, the brain cannot use all that information. It becomes overwhelmed and disoriented, and it actually begins to shut down the amount of information that it will intake and process at one time. And so these kids come in and they're single word readers, and they skip words and they miss lines because their visual field is so small, they don't even know where they are on the page. And then the last thing there was going to be visual perception. And that's just a huge thing. And a lot of kids come in because they have visual perception problems, but the majority of them have difficulty intaking that information, and therefore the perceptual ability is compromised. And then the next slide here is just it's a great quote that I love. When visual skills are automatic, as opposed to having to work so hard to get that information in, it frees up the frontal lobe of the brain for comprehension, thinking, planning, and control. And again, a lot of these kids come in, and if their visual system is compromised, and especially if that visual field has collapsed, they no longer think in a whole. They think just about how they're seeing. And one of the things that we see a lot is these kids that come in with behavior problems, they can't foresee the consequences of their actions. And once we open these fields up and retrain the visual system to intake and process information wholly, they start to change, and they actually can see what's going to happen down the line if they misbehave or they run into these behavior problems. All right, so that is what's that?
It's a good job, Dr. O. You're at your about 7-minute mark, just so you know.
Okay, did it. Woohoo.
Yeah, woohoo.
Yeah, that's really impressive to Kelly, because she's always trying to cut me off because I'm usually going on and on. All right, so the next part of this is I'm just going to give a quick introduction to Jamie. Jamie is the mother of Oliver, who is one of our patients. Oliver is 8 years old. He was 8 years old when he came in about a year ago. He was having problems with reading and math, having some behaviors, poor self-confidence. He had difficulty focusing and paying attention. And sometimes his eyes would get sore and he'd have headaches. One of the things that I noted early on when I was looking at his history is he had had seizures for 2 years after he was born. And when I see something like that, you have to take that into account, because we're working on the neurological system, and that can have a major effect on how far we can go or what kinds of things we have to do to correct what we're working with. So when I first saw him, simple findings that I saw were his eyes were very healthy. He had 20/20 acuity in each eye, but his nervous system was definitely out of balance, causing him to be quite constricted as far as his visual field. He had poor eye movement control, didn't know where he was on the page. And when we actually watch, we've got a computer program that will actually calibrate for your eyes and follow your eyes as you're reading a paragraph. And he was all over the place, had no idea where he was. He had poor focusing ability, convergence difficulty, and those two things caused very low endurance. So he could be effective or efficient for a few minutes at a time. That was it, though. After that, he was just blown out of the water. And for the rest of the story, we're going to go to Jamie.
Thanks, Dr. O. I appreciate you. Woo! So as a very analytical person, I came with my notes today and was ready to share. But, I actually really want to share a couple minutes from the parent's perspective, because as Dr. O was talking about the child that felt so much frustration, that was banging their head against the wall, saying that they felt stupid, even though our son has graduated from, vision therapy, it is still very emotionally triggering, because my good boy, when I say good boy, Oliver has always been a very well-behaved young man. And those are also some of the things we were experiencing as a family. So before vision development, as long as we can remember, yes, Oliver was born seizuring. He had seizures for the first 2 years of his life. However, as a parent, our child hit every single growth milestone. He did very well. He was emotionally and energetically engaged with other children, always very well behaved, your typical tornado of a little boy, and had so much fun. And what happened is, when we started kindergarten, he always struggled with reading. Oliver will be 10 next month. And the struggle with reading continued. And everyone would say, he's very well behaved. He's this old soul. He has the best conversations. He is very analytical. But the struggle with reading was more and more. And every time we entered into a new grade, we still had amazing support teachers, but, we worked on things like syllables and pronunciation and everything else, and, fluency. And, at no point, because Oliver had that 20/20 vision, at no point were we ever aware that there's other services that are available to us and our child to help with some of these learning things, right? So what did that continue to look like? Last year, we transferred into a new district. Things became more and more frustrating on the home front. Our son was now in 3rd grade. So what would happen all of a sudden, in addition to reading support, we needed math support. Why? Because in 3rd grade, all of a sudden, so much of the math becomes reading, right? This didn't make sense because Oliver always excelled in math. So there's so much additional support, and the frustrations increased at school. And you make all these justifications as a parent. It's because we're in a new district, in a new school, we transferred in, it takes time. And the truth is, there was something going on that was bigger than all of this, and we had no idea. Right. So at home, what did it look like? There was so much frustration. There was nonstop temper tantrums. Homework that should take 15 to 20 minutes would take, 2 hours. You can imagine, as a parent, in having a career after a full day, the stress that it puts on the family as a parent with your children. It's still very emotional for me, because for years, it really took away from, because Oliver required so much attention, it took away me being able to give the kind of attention I wanted to my other child that's in the same exact household. Energetically, I would definitely say it caused tension, with my partner as well. And there was arguments, there was yelling, there was frustration. And as a parent, when you feel like you can't provide the solution for your child, there's nothing that feels worse in the whole world. So there was a ton of tears. I got involved with the school. I heard things from teachers. I heard boys will be boys. Boys just lose focus. I heard all kinds of things. Things would come home on his homework. I gave him extra time to do his work, and he's still not done. Took too long on this test. So you can imagine, this child who feels like he's trying very, very hard would come home with these comments and not feel good enough. And then something happened towards the end of last year. Something so simple as he had so much homework and didn't have time to practice a couple extra letters. And this teacher, what happened is they pinned his name to a top of a board for having an incomplete work assignment. And something so simple put my child over the edge. So the guidance counselor gets involved, all of this stuff, and I can go on and on and on. And what happened is his support teachers came to the table, and the one support teacher who actually quite some time ago had a child that also did work with Dr. O'Connor, she said, this seems familiar to me. Oliver is actually a very good student that tries very hard. This is not a behavioral thing. There's something bigger going on here. Consider calling, Vision Development of Western New York. I said, sure. I'll try like anything at this point. You want the proper support for your child. So I called Vision Development of Western New York. And what I can say is just the phone call alone, Miss Sue, I think, took the initial call, and then Kelly here on the team. And they must have thought, I'm pretty sure I was bawling my eyes out, because the first time ever as a parent, I felt heard. I was like, whoa, just by the questions they were asking me, I knew immediately they could tell some of the things I was experiencing as a parent and what was going on with my child. So we scheduled an evaluation. We came in within a couple of weeks, and we met the amazing Dr. O'Connor. Dr. O'Connor, one of the tests he was explaining the technology, not only did he immediately, you could just tell the questions he was asking with the test he was doing with Oliver, he knew. And what was so cool is not only did I feel in the completely right place as a parent, but my son, my reserved Oliver that has been with all of these support teachers and doing all the things and having all of this frustration, he opened up to Dr. O within moments. He felt safe. And as a child, I could tell I was bawling my eyes out in Dr. O's office because my child felt seen and heard for the first time ever in his life, right? And this test, this amazing technology that they have. So it was a paragraph where Oliver had to read one paragraph, and you can see where our eyes would usually go left to right, first line to next line, and so on. Oliver's one eye was attempting to do that. He would skip over words. This is one of the signs to look for, where their eyes read a couple words and they skip over common words, right? But then his other eye was all over the place. So when the teacher was saying things like lack of focus and then the test takes him so much longer, my son was trying his hardest, and we had no idea that all of these things were going on with him, because from an optometric point of view, he had 20/20 vision, right? So voila. So what I will say, because I can go on and on and on, is we chose to move forward with vision development of Western New York. And the reason we chose to do this is because at this point, our son felt safe, and we felt like what they were providing was worth the chance of getting our son what he needed to come out on the other side of this. Now, when you're making that commitment, and it is a commitment. There is a financial commitment, there is a time commitment, and there's an energetic commitment, okay? And you have to look at all those things, because there's a lot of options, right? And you have to say, like, what kind of ROI do I need to make this time, energetic, and financial commitment? And when you're talking about, like, whether it's your child or your student, or you're talking to a parent, this went on for years. Can you imagine years and years and years, from kindergarten to the end of 3rd grade, trying our hardest, getting additional support, and not having the answers, and all of a sudden you found that answer? It ended up honestly being priceless. We made the commitment not just for our son, we made that commitment as a family. We were all involved. Even up front, from balancing his nervous system when he had to do light therapy, we chose that to be a time together where I would read, or we would listen to Audible books together. So much. We did the infinity walk. There's these beautiful exercises. You're working at home, you're working with the team. We would do these as a family. We made this commitment as a family. And what was on the other side of that was absolutely beautiful, because what we saw in just a period of 6 months, our son just graduated a couple months ago. And over the course of 6 months, not only did we see Oliver completely balance his nervous system, we saw him become more confident. We saw him acquire life tools and skills. He knows when he needs a break. He knows when he could work a little bit harder and push himself. He knows, like, all of his constricted fields, are more balanced now. We're continually always working at it. But the outbursts that we were having at the end of last year, and the frustration and the tears, those do not exist in our household right now. Now I have time for both. Yeah, yay, right? I have time for both of our children. I mean, I want to be completely honest and transparent. There were a lot of spousal arguments in our home last year. There was a lot of frustration, a lot of exhaustion, and mostly because as a parent, nobody wants to feel like they're failing as a parent. You want to help your child. And there were so many things that we just didn't even know that the services existed or was available. Nobody mentioned it to us, with all the support that we had over the years. So what I want to say, because I can clearly go on, is right now today, Oliver is doing great academically. We still have to continue reading and writing. We have to continue to build up endurance, and we'll get there. But his confidence is there. His patience is there. He's building up with fluency. Homework, there's not even yelling anymore. Now we just know we take breaks between subjects. We come to it. We do it within a certain time frame. We have to have fun with it. Sometimes we also have to get creative as well. But there's other things that came out of it, in addition, that I just want to quickly share, because I'm being Dr. O, and I'm carrying on longer than I need to. Other things that came out on the other side as well, excuse me, the life skills. There's times when I felt frustrated, and Oliver will look at me, not in a homework situation, but in life situations. And Oliver will say, "Mommy, just take a breath, or let's do a heart-to-heart hug." I'm like, "Really, kid?" Like, he's teaching me now, right? But the other things too, athletically, like things that were never his jam, throwing a football, hitting a baseball. He's never had an interest in athletics, and now he's willing to do those things, and he's rather good at them, honestly. And what I will honestly say, excuse me, is with all of it, because I can clearly go on and I've gone on too long, is if you know a family, or if you're that family and you're willing to put in the work, the return on our investment, time, energy, financials, like I said, was not only priceless, but the piece that we have as a family, literally the work with this amazing team has literally changed the trajectory of my child's life. And in addition to that, speaking of the team, yes, you have Dr. O'Connor, you have Dr. Fortuna that's not here, amazing therapists in this team as well. this team became a second family to us. When your child, we're there twice a week. And when your child is asking, when do I get to see Dr. O or Dr. Fortuna again? That is so magical. It's not like we were dragging our child or we had to do something. It was literally a place that we enjoyed going, and we'll continue to support them. We'll continue to be an advocate for every single thing they do, because I'm that parent that wish I would have known that these services existed years before we were ever even introduced to them. So just I have an immense amount of gratitude for the whole entire team at Vision Development. Thank you.
Oh, you're muted, Dr. O. There you go.
Yep. Okay. Jamie, thank you. That was pretty amazing. And as Jamie did, we see after we do or while we're doing an evaluation, as we're explaining what we're seeing to parents. And again, I mean, we know what's going on as we move through our evaluation. And as we're explaining this to parents and they realize that, yes, we do actually understand what's going on and we have a solution, a lot of parents cry. I had a 21-year-old girl in this morning. She's a senior at University of Buffalo, and she has been struggling forever. She says it takes her so much more time to accomplish tasks than it does all of her friends. And they finally came in for an evaluation, and she left crying this morning. I gave her a hug and we prayed for a few minutes, and she was bawling as she walked out the door, but she understood that there was something that could be done and could make her life easier. And again, it's not that the kids that we work with are not going to be able to get through life. They can, but we feel, and I feel for sure, and that's why I keep doing this. If I don't do something to help these children get to a point where they can function to the best of their ability, they're never going to get to the plan that God has for them. And I just think I'm opening up their ability to just move in whatever direction they need to move. That's why we do this.